The time has come. The NFL playoffs are once again upon us. 14 teams will enter the 5-week gauntlet, and only one will come out hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in February. The journey to the Super Bowl starts right now, here on Super Wild Card Weekend. And boy, is it shaping up to be a doozy, as a lot of matchups, at least on paper, could go either way, or at the very least have some interesting narratives behind them. And generally, just knowing how this season is gone, it feels like just about anything could happen. Time to forge our path to the Super Bowl. Time for a little preview of the week ahead, as well as some predictions. So, we're gonna start out NFL playoff wildcard weekend on Saturday afternoon when the Cleveland Browns play the Houston Texans. Not gonna lie, this is a game I've gone back and forth on a lot this week, as it genuinely feels like it could go either way. This might be the toughest game to judge. The Browns currently are the better overall team in terms of talent, and they're obviously a lot more experienced than this young Texans team, and something like that could definitely play to their advantage. However, Houston have shown that they're no slouches, and that CJ Stroud is very ahead of his time. He could end up being one of the next all-time great quarterbacks, and I think that he is ready for the spotlight. He showed us against Indy last weekend that he's super clutch, and there's no reason to not believe that he couldn't do such a thing again against Cleveland at home. And it's pretty clear that both teams have certain appeals and weaknesses that could end up shaping this game depending on what does and does not get exposed. On the side of Houston, like I said, they're looking good with CJ Stroud. Their offense can be extremely dangerous at times as well. And every once in a while, their defense does put up some really reliable performances. But on the other side of it, they're dealing with that inexperience factor. And I think that could lead to a situation where they're more likely to give into the pressure. And on top of it, sometimes their defense doesn't show up when they need them to, I feel like. And also, it seems that they haven't played a lot of high-octane offenses, especially in recent memory. So I don't know how they're going to do against a Cleveland team that has been rolling on that side of the ball lately. And while they didn't have Stroud for that game, if you remember, they did play Cleveland a couple weeks back, and they gave up over 30 points to those guys. But on the other hand, maybe with Stroud, they can manage the game more properly and keep it from getting too out of hand. Then on the side of Cleveland, they have a very strong defense, obviously. Probably top 2 in the league in most people's eyes. They are extremely dangerous. They're good at forcing those turnovers. Myles Garrett and those guys are going to get after CJ Stroud. It could be a rough day at the office for him. And the offense has looked revitalized with Joe Flacco. He's been throwing dimes to Njoku and Amari Cooper. It seems like they're healthy and ready to go on that side of the ball. But what you have to remember with Cleveland here is that they are relying on a 38-year-old quarterback who's been out of a starting job for a long time. Flacco has looked extremely good since joining the Browns, but you never know when things are suddenly going to turn sideways on their head, especially knowing that Flacco, despite putting up a lot of yards, has been turning the ball over a good bit, and that's something this Texans team could take advantage of just because of how good CJ Stroud is. If he's given those opportunities, I feel like he's going to take them and run with it. Both teams have certain strengths they could push to gain an upper hand and eventually win out a close game. I get the feeling it's going to be a really intense one, but in the end, I am going to pick the Browns to win this game. I really want to see the Texans go far, just because I love Stroud and what he's doing over there, but how I see it is the Browns just have way more experience as a team. They're a lot less likely to have those execution errors since they've been here before. A lot of team members have been on playoff runs on this Cleveland team. I expect them to do okay and to be less likely to make those mistakes compared to the Texans. Maybe it won't be Stroud that does it, but I just get the feeling the Texans will have some kind of execution issue in a high-pressure environment like this, and I think eventually the Texans are going to get worn down and they're going to fall behind. Good as Stroud has been, that Browns defense is unlike any of the other teams he's really been challenged with this season, and I think you're going to see him struggle a little bit over time. Eventually, the Browns are going to get to him. They're going to break through, and I think Flacco and the Browns will just do enough to end up winning this game. Although I will say, I'm really not that confident with this pick. The experience thing could end up not playing a part at all in this, and if Joe Flacco ends up falling apart, don't be surprised if the Texans win this game. And on Saturday night, a prime-time game between the Dolphins and Chiefs on Peacock. Oh boy. So here we go. Dolphins versus Chiefs rematch. We've seen them play one time already. It's Tyreek Hill's return to Kansas City, and you already know that he is ready for a revenge game here. And considering the Chiefs have been so down as of late, this could be the Dolphins' chance to prove themselves and get a little revenge while they're at it. The question is, will the Chiefs' methodical approach win this game out for them? Or will the Dolphins break out enough big plays to eventually wear and tear down that Chiefs wall? Well, under normal circumstances, I'd feel like the Dolphins maybe have the better chance to win this game. I feel like they have been the better team overall this season. But the thing is, it would seem that weather is going to play a big time role in this game, as it seems that temperatures for this game could end up making it one of the coldest matches in NFL history. And as we know, Kansas City is way more used to these types of temperatures, and they're at home as well. Miami are used to playing under the warm sun, and that could be a big problem for them. I suspect that could end up slowing their offense down a lot, and it's going to make it less likely they can score a bunch through the air, which is their bread and butter. And I think overall, because of something like that, the Chiefs are more likely to win this game, even though I do not like where they're at as a team at all right now. I just feel that they can probably get away with running the ball and taking it slow, and the Dolphins just not being able to execute in a situation where they're feeling very uncomfortable. This weather could absolutely screw them over. And let's not forget that the Dolphins maybe won't be the healthiest in this game either. Yes, it looks like they're going to have Waddle and Mostert back, which is absolutely huge, but at the same time, they're down key members on the offensive line, and they've lost some key defensive players in recent weeks. Not having Bradley Chubb's going to make it a lot harder for them to generate a consistent pass rush, and I think they're just going to get overwhelmed from all of these tough conditions that are definitely going against them. Anyway, moving into Sunday. First up at 1 p.m., the Pittsburgh Steelers are taking on the Buffalo Bills. Pretty weird situation here. It always feels like the Steelers somehow make it here when nobody asked them to. I just don't understand how they always pull this off every year with Mike Tomlin. But here they are with Mason Rudolph as their starting quarterback in a playoff game at Buffalo. I think most people would agree that the Bills are absolutely positively the better team and that they should most certainly be winning this game no problem. When you look at it, the Bills' offense is way more high-octane, you can't depend on the Steelers to put up points consistently, and they're going to be without TJ Watt for this one, which severely limits their potential on defense. All signs are indicating to Buffalo winning this game easily on the surface, but we all know it's not going to be that easy. And I say that for a few reasons. One, the Steelers' BS is always real, and it's going to find a way to affect this game somehow. But two, the Bills have this tendency to be very up and down. We've seen them be super inconsistent all season long, where they go on these stretches where they don't play that great. We just saw it last weekend against Miami, and there's reason to believe it could continue against the Steelers as well. A lot of the time, they just can't play a complete 60-minute game. They always end up making mistakes and making it uncomfortably close. But also, just like I was talking about with Kansas City versus Miami, it seems that weather conditions could play a major part in how this game goes. Supposedly, sustained winds could be between 20 and 30 miles per hour, with the gust going possibly all the way up to 60. And it's going to be really cold, and there's a chance that there's snow on top of it. That is a lot of crazy stuff that's going to go down that can ruin your game plan, that forces you to adapt and possibly fall into making mistakes. Field goals are going to be difficult, and with that chaotic nature, it almost feels like it maybe better suits the Steelers, as that's just the type of team they are. Wackiness, unpredictability, low scoring, all that stuff favors the Steelers and how they like to play. That's just Pittsburgh Steelers football to me. But in the end, despite all that, I think I'm going to stick with the Buffalo Bills. I don't think they're going to go down in the wild card. It just feels very unlikely. They've gotten this far for a reason. They were able to win out the AFC East. They've been playing a lot better since firing their offensive coordinator, and I think they're going to find a way to win this game. They're more likely to figure it out in these tough conditions to score those points. And I just know that they want to make it to the Super Bowl. That's pretty clear. I don't think they're going to be stopped by Pittsburgh of all teams. They're at the very least going to get to the divisional round. I'd be pretty surprised if they lose this game. It's definitely possible, just knowing all the conditions surrounding it and how Buffalo likes to shoot themselves in the foot at times. But against the Steelers without TJ Watt, I think they'll be able to clean up their mistakes and edge out what should be a pretty ugly game. Up next, on Saturday afternoon, we're heading to the Green Bay Packers versus Dallas Cowboys. So, how I see it is, the Packers were just able to make it to the playoffs. I'm very impressed that they made it here in their first season with a new quarterback, but they have a mountain to climb, as the Dallas Cowboys, despite being maybe a little bit fraudulent, are still a super dangerous team at home. They're a completely different squad in their home building, pretty much blowing out every single opponent that has crossed their path. And if you look at history based on the patterns, Dallas usually don't lose until the divisional round. Sorry in advance, Cowboys fans, but that's the hard truth. They usually find a way to blow it during that time. Usually they get a good quality wild card victory. It's happened a lot in recent memory, where they edge out a close game or they blow someone out, like we saw against Tampa with Tom Brady. Jordan Love is playing his first ever playoff game. This isn't Aaron Rodgers or anything close to that for that matter. And also, the Packers have a big weakness that any good playoff team should be able to easily expose, and that's the fact that they are one of the worst teams in the NFL against the run, giving up around 130 yards per game on the ground. The Cowboys have been a bit more pass-centric this season, but McCarthy tends to be a pretty conservative approach, and I think he's going to see that and design his game plan around running the football, and Tony Pollard's going to end up having a big day as the Cowboys just slowly but surely burn the Packers over time. They'll run the ball a ton, that'll open up the play action, maybe they'll get a big play or two to CeeDee Lamb, and that should be all she wrote. Then we have maybe the game that I'm looking forward to the most on Sunday night, when the LA Rams played the Detroit Lions. Oh my goodness, storylines galore here. It's Matt Stafford's former team versus Jared Goff's former team. These two were traded for each other back in the day, and we know what happened soon after. This is a great chance for Jared Goff to finally have his revenge against the Rams. He's been working hard and he's been waiting for this moment for a very long time, and I don't think he's going to waste it. I'm expecting Jared Goff to have a pretty good day, and I'm expecting a relatively high-scoring game, as neither defense is anything special. It's probably going to be a shootout, which means it's going to come down to who makes that first mistake. And if we're being honest, it seems like that more likely team is the Lions, and in particular, Jared Goff. As if you look at his play recently compared to the early season, there's been a pretty big difference when it comes to the turnover margin. He's had more of those games where he struggled as well, but I still feel inclined to go with Detroit in this game. The Rams have been a terrifyingly good team. They are hot. I think they're 7-1 in their last 8 or something like that. They figured something out with Stafford and the O-line. The receiver duo is disgusting. They've got a really good run game as well. But I just get the feeling the Lions aren't going to waste this. They finally have gotten a home game after all this time. It's very special for them. And the idea of Goff getting his revenge, it just sounds too good to pass up on. I haven't loved what I've seen from the guy recently, but this is where I think he's going to buckle down. Just knowing how meaningful this matchup is both for himself and the city of Detroit, I think he's going to put up one of his best performances of the season against a very susceptible Rams secondary. The time is now. It's time for the Lions to win their first playoff game in a very long time. But don't be surprised if the Rams win this one. I gotta say, it really does feel like it could go either way. If anything, you might even favor the Rams. They have a great shot of going into Detroit and stunning that home crowd. They have the talent to make it happen. It feels like they found a good rhythm with their play. They figured out all the secrets to their offense. We know they're capable of winning shootouts, and against a Lions team that's prone to making mistakes, that could bode very well for them. You never know how Aaron Donald is going to do in a playoff scenario. He could turn it up to a different level, and I expect that veteran offense to control the clock well and keep them in this match throughout. But I'm just going to pick the Lions because of gut feelings, and me personally just wanted to see them get that win that they've been looking for a very long time. And lastly, on Monday night, the struggling Philadelphia Eagles travel to Tampa Bay to play Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. It's officially scary hours for Philly faithful, as a couple of weeks ago this would seem like a gimme game, but with how they've been struggling and some of the opponents they've lost to recently, Nothing feels like a guarantee anymore for this Eagles team, and it feels like they could get eliminated at any given moment. Any team could be taking them down with how they've played. Their offense is inconsistent, their pass game has fallen off big time, and their defense, I mean, we all know how terrible that's been, and that could all lead to a big day for Tampa. Baker Mayfield, we know, kind of like with Jared Goff, he's been waiting for this moment for a long time. He's back in the playoffs. It's a feels-good moment for him. He's definitely going to make the most of it, and with how poor that Eagles secondary is, he could torch them with Mike Evans and that excellent receiving core. The Buccaneers really might win this game, but I'm going to go ahead and pick the Eagles to win this one on the road. It feels like Tampa are the better team right now, but I'm of the belief that the last couple of weeks will serve as a wake-up call for this Eagles team, and they'll be prepared enough to get through this. What you have to remember is the Eagles were probably dreading this regular season. They just wanted to get back to the playoffs after coming up so close but so far in that Super Bowl against Kansas City. They've been waiting for this one for months on end. It's almost been a year since that happened. This is all they've been thinking about, and I don't think they're going to let this opportunity slip up, at least not this early. I'd hate to keep bringing it up, but maybe the Eagles get this win through the weather. I know that Hurts hasn't been the greatest QB in the rain and all, but I think this could lead to a lot more run-heavy situations from both teams, and the Eagles are obviously the more reliable team on the ground game. That's their bread and butter, both with Hurts and DeAndre Swift in that back by committee. They have the strong offensive line for run blocking as well. If there's a lot of heavy rain as anticipated in Tampa Bay for this one, I think that's going to help out the Eagles more than anything else. I like Rachaad White, but the Buccaneers rely a lot on those big-time plays in the pass game to open up their run, while the Eagles are more focused on a run-centric approach. I think it's going to enable them to do what they're best at more. They're going to be more reluctant to throw the ball, and that's going to lead to a lot of big plays for Swift or Hurts or whoever else to slowly edge out a close win against this Bucs team. They're not elite like they were the last time they played them in the playoffs back in 2020 or whenever it was. This is a different Bucs team. They're older, they've changed, and I think the Eagles can get away with a run-centric game plan to win what maybe could end up being a pretty ugly game if said weather conditions with storms end up coming through. The Eagles are very frustrated right now, but I'm going to believe in them to at least get through the wild card round. And with that said, that's going to wrap up my preview and predictions for the 2024 Wild Card Weekend. Let me know your thoughts about these matchups down in the comments below, and if you think any upsets are going to happen. And of course, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more NFL content.